So with 7 players reportedly set to depart Newcastle United this summer, with Kieran Trippier being the headline of that act, and a great servant and leader he has been, Newcastle expected to put together a massive rebuild of this squad over this summer window. I have the media's reported rumoured players to be coming in for those replacements. So if you're new around here, I'm Adam, this is Two for Joy. Make sure you get down there, like and subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000. Now let's get into it. So we'll kick things off with Newcastle's expiring contracts this summer, and where we start is Mark Gillespie, aged 33 on £15,000 a week, closely followed by John Ruddy, 39 at £15,000 a week. Now I feel like both of these guys, they're just training goalkeepers, and what I'd actually like to see is them both depart and Newcastle to bring in some of the youth team goalkeepers and step them up into the first team, with Nick Pope taking his spot as a second and us looking to bring in a fresh number 1 for next season. Now we're followed up closely by Fabian Schär at 34, £70,000 a week, and while Fabian Schär in the media has previously said he'd like to see out his career at Newcastle, I feel that under this regime we may well see Fabian Schär not get an extension and be let go this summer. Closely followed by Emil Kraft at 31 on £55,000 a week. Now Emil Kraft, his injury record over the last 2 seasons and playing a minimal amount of game time makes me believe that this is a done deal. He's on his way. And then last of all, Kieran Trippier, obviously coming out in the media and giving his statement, 35 years old, £120,000 a week, and he's been a loyal servant to the club, 4.5 years, a great leader. But time is up. And as we move on, Newcastle United loan players to leave this summer. And when I mean loan players, one we've got on loan and one who's been on loan. Aaron Ramsdale, aged 27, £120,000 per week. Now we do have a buyout on Aaron Ramsdale for £20 million. But I realistically don't think this is going to happen, with Newcastle possibly looking at other goalkeepers, and I can't see us spending £20 million on Aaron Ramsdale and bringing in another goalkeeper. I think it'll be too much out of the budget for this summer's window. And what I actually think will happen, as Nick Pope has had a 1-year extension and contract doesn't expire until next summer, that Nick Pope will probably become either the starting goalkeeper at the start of next season until the new keeper beds in, or he'll become the second and we will bring in a ready-made first choice goalkeeper. Now obviously Matt Targett, I think this is a done deal to Middlesbrough. I think he's set to go, 29 years old, £40,000 a week. He hasn't looked the same ever since we took him on loan, and I think it's the right decision to get him out of the club. Now, with regards to the rumour mill, there are 5 other players in this first team that are being linked away this summer. And with the talk coming out from David Hopkinson about how Newcastle will need to sell players in order to buy, even though there is a transfer kitty there, I would expect some of the big names, or at least a couple of big names, to leave Newcastle United this summer. Now, the transfer rumour mill, as the rumours are heating up this summer, we have Johan Wissa, aged 29, £140,000 a week. Now we signed Wissa for £55 million and he's been linked with Fenerbahce. But if I'm quite honest, I don't think this is a link for a transfer. I think they'd be more likely to take him on loan. The Turkish league pay big wages. They bring in big signings. I just don't think they will be willing to spend the money that we paid for Johan Wissa, and I don't think Newcastle will be willing to take the loss of selling him in around the 30 to 35 million pound mark, if I'm quite honest. Then we have Tino Livramento, who we all know with Trippier and Kraft going. Tino Livramento, I still think he looks set to go to Manchester City. 23 years old, £50,000 a week. Realistically, if we plan to keep him this summer, we need to put him on a massive bumper contract, and I'm talking 150, 100 to £150,000 a week in order to keep him. A 5-year deal, I find it highly unlikely that we'll stretch to that sort of amount for Tino Livramento. And when you actually look at Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall, they've only started 5 games together all season with the injuries between them. And Tino Livramento obviously has had his injury problems with Newcastle over the past few years. I feel that this is the right time to sell should we get somewhere around the 70 to £80 million mark for Tino Livramento. And then next up, Bruno G. This one I think is absolute bullshit. I can't see Bruno leaving. He's 28, £160,000 a week, captain. He's been linked with the likes of Man United, Juventus, Real Madrid. I'll be quite honest though, I don't see a club willing to pay 100 to 120 million, which is where I believe it will be, for a 28-year-old centre midfielder. If I'm quite honest, if you look across the landscape of the transfer market this summer, I think there are probably players who could come in for a better fee in a younger age who are coming into their peak that those clubs will most likely look at. And then on to Anthony Gordon, age 24, £150,000 a week, linked with Liverpool. This one I could see happening. Obviously, I think Anthony Gordon, his head's been in Liverpool ever since the rumours a couple of seasons ago, and I don't think he's ever really fulfilled the potential of where we thought he could be after he had one great season. I certainly feel like he's gone missing a few times this season, but once again, I think if Newcastle could get a 70, 80 million pounds for Anthony Gordon, I'd be quite happy to see him go. And then the last one, Sandro Tonali, who I think we all know his agent's been shopping him around this January window just been. And the rumours haven't stopped ever since then. 25 years old, £150,000 a week, linked with Manchester United. I'll be quite honest, it's not the team I'd like him to go to, and I'm pretty sure all the Newcastle fans would like him to go abroad. But I could see this deal happening. I could see Manchester United paying 100 or north of 100 million for Sandro Tonali. I could see them putting him on £300,000 a week, and I could see Sandro Tonali being open to moving to Manchester United purely for the wages. Now, if I'm quite honest, I don't think all of those players will go. I think it'll be one or two. I most likely think it'll be Tino Livramento and Sandro Tonali, or it'll be Tino Livramento and Anthony Gordon. I genuinely can't see Sandro Tonali staying this summer, if I'm honest. But I think there are players out there to replace him for a lot less money who we could bring on. But I'll start the rumour mill with the transfer rumours of goalkeepers. And Newcastle have been linked to 2 goalkeepers. Obviously one that we all know about and I still think is bullshit. I don't think it will happen. But James Trafford, 23 years old, £93,000 a week. A transfer fee reported of around £40 million. Now, personally, I've got the stats here for James Trafford. And in the league, he's made 3 appearances. He's conceded 4 goals and he's kept 1 clean sheet. He's only been a 10% starter for Manchester City, but he has been the 100% starter for their cup run this season, keeping 6 clean sheets in the FA Cup and League Cup. City paid £31 million for him. I realistically don't think we would get him for 40, and genuinely believe that he will be more likely to end up at Aston Villa, who have also been linked with him, than he will at Newcastle United. Now, the interesting one, Robin Rissa, a 21-year-old goalkeeper, £15,000 a week, £30 million reported transfer fee for RC Lens. And his stats, I'll be quite honest, look a lot more promising. He's played 28 games this season, conceded 27 goals, but kept 10 clean sheets. Realistically, I think he's the right age. I think he's the right profile. He's still got a little bit of a mistake in him. in the same way that James Trafford does. But at the age and the profile, I think this one could be a realistic signing for Newcastle in this summer window. And then obviously with Kieran Trippier, Emil Kraft and Tino Livramento now being linked away to Manchester City, Newcastle will need to look into the right back position. And the only two right backs being reported as linked to Newcastle are Rico Lewis at 21 years old, £31,000 a week for a reported transfer fee of 40 million. And this more comes down to Manchester City than I believe it does Rico Lewis, with them reportedly not interested in keeping him. And I think this might be if Tino Livramento comes in, he may well be moved on. Manchester City have a great record for selling young English talent, putting very good green balance sheets together for selling youth players. And ironically, Newcastle linked to most players that have come out the youth academy from Manchester City. Now, Rico Lewis's stats this season: he's played 10 games, he scored 0 goals in the Premier League, and he's got 1 assist. He's a 30% starter for Manchester City. And in the Champions League, he's made 4 appearances with 1 assist. Now, realistically, his age profile is perfect. His wage is perfect. The transfer fee, I feel, may be a little bit high for what Newcastle will be looking to do due to the volume of players that they're having to bring in. But my big issue with this one, and the reason I believe it won't happen, is Rico Lewis lacks any strength. And this will be the testament as to whether Eddie Howe is staying or not staying, is who we target in the summer window. But I don't believe Rico Lewis is as good a fullback as Tino Livramento, or has the ability to go on and be as good a fullback as Tino Livramento does. Which is why the other link to, and now I'll butcher this, Zakaria El Ouadi. He's 24 years old. It's undisclosed how much he's on a week. He's £15 million reportedly, playing for KRC Genk. And his stats are quite impressive for the league. He's played 24 games with 7 goals and 2 assists in the league. And in the Europa League, he's played 9 games with 4 goals and 1 assist. Now, he looks like a very attacking, well-rounded fullback. Now, it's kind of similar to the mould of Lewis Hall. He gets forward, he's a good crosser of the ball, and he can finish. I mean, 11 goals for a fullback is a pretty impressive stat for the season. So it will be interesting. Newcastle have been linked with a lot of players from Belgium. He is Belgian-Moroccan. And I think this one could be an interesting link come the summer. Moving on to the centre midfield role. Newcastle, the only player that I could find Newcastle have been linked with for a centre midfielder that I had any kind of validity to it, if I'm honest, was João Gomez, 24, Brazilian, £131,000 a week, of a transfer fee reported of 40 million if Wolves are relegated, which we all know they are. I'll be quite honest with this one. I quite like João Gomez as a player. I'm not sure if he is the player to fit our system, and I think that's really important. The way that we spend this window needs to be players that either fit this system, or if we have a change of ownership or management, that we sign players to fit the system of a new management coming in. And I feel that João Gomez would be a great signing. Having a trio of Brazilians in the middle, I would be very happy with. But I'm not entirely sure that he fits the mould of what Eddie Howe would want as a DM. And then moving on to the strikers. And the last of this list. And the same thing. We'll start with the same old, been reported for 2 seasons now. Liam Delap, 23 years old, £125,000 a week with a transfer fee of 40 million. Now, I do not like this as a signing. I do not like the idea of us bringing in Liam Delap. And the reasons I've got for this is he's made 22 appearances for Chelsea this season. He scored 1 goal. He's got 1 assist. He's already on £125,000 a week. And I feel that £40 million, and Chelsea won't want to lose money on him, but I feel it's a really overinflated price for Liam Delap. And while I feel Liam Delap will go on eventually to be a Premier League striker and be a first team starter for some club in 2 or 3 years, he is nowhere near the level that Newcastle require now. And that's what brings us on to Foroughlin Balogun. And Balogun has got a much more impressive record. 24 years old, £77,000 per week, and a transfer fee of £30 million reportedly from AS Monaco. And Balogun has made 23 starts in Ligue 1 with 9 goals and 5 assists. And he's made 10 starts in the Champions League with 5 goals. And I feel like this guy could be in the mould of what we were looking for the summer window just been. I'll be honest with you, I did look at him previously when he was linked to us in the summer, and I was surprised that Newcastle didn't go for him. He's an ex-Arsenal youth academy player. He's kind of moved around a couple of clubs. I think it was Strasbourg, and then I think it was Reims in France, and then on to Monaco. But he is at kind of the upward trajectory of his career, and it feels like within the next couple of seasons, this boy may come into his peak and be a prime and ready striker. And I feel like Newcastle should take advantage of this, because realistically, the wages he's on, Newcastle could quite happily offer him more. And if you see him as a striker, he is the stereotypical get in behind number 9. He is works the box well, a good finisher, technically very competent, a good controller of the ball. And I feel like this really would be set up, match made in heaven, for him to sit right in front of Nick Voltmada should we play a 10 next season, as I hope we will. But let me know in the comments, guys, what you think. Let me know what you think of the rumours. Obviously, most of this stuff, the media just banned around stuff that's bullshit. Everybody says if you're buying Premier League proven players, all I would say is we bought Premier League proven this season, and look how that worked out for us. I'll be quite honest, the players that we brought in from overseas for the prices we've paid for them, I actually think are better players than the players we bought from the Premier League. And like I say, let me know in the comments whether you think Newcastle are moving in the right direction with regards to the style of football, the squad, what we're going to do. It's a massive rebuild to be undertaken this summer. There must be plans for a huge transfer kitty, because realistically, looking through the team, I'd say with 7 players leaving and probably 2, possibly 3 likely to go out, Newcastle need to bring in probably 8 players to bolster this squad, and probably bring on some of our youth academy and some of the young lads we've got out on loan. So, like I say, let me know. Like, subscribe, get involved in the chat, and hopefully, guys, I will see you in the next one.